Well, when I was cleaning out my mum's house ready for her to move in, she had this table hidden away. And she didn't use it. She didn't like the dark wood. And it wouldn't fit in my house. But I thought, I can't throw this away because I think it's going to be useful for something. So what I thought I would do is, how about that? Take this top off it, like that. It's nice and round. I won't chuck the legs away. I might even keep them for something else. There we are. Take these drawers out and turn this into a really useful Lazy Susan. Either to use in my craft room, or we eat quite a lot of Chinese food, as you can probably tell. And it would be useful when we have people round to turn into, to use as a Lazy Susan. Now I want to ensure that I get as much of this colour off as I possibly can. So I'm going to have to use a stripper on this. A paint stripper, not the kind of stripper that takes the clothes off. And before I do that, what I'm going to do is give this a good clean using sugar soap. Because if there's any dirt on here whatsoever, or grease or anything, that's going to inhibit the stripper a little bit. And let's be honest, we want to make this as easy as possible. So I'm just using some sugar soap here. I'm going to give it a good clean. And that way it should make our life a little bit easier. Now, I'm not sure about this gold bit going round the middle of this, but we will see what happens to it when the stripper goes on. And if that comes off, then we can replace that or paint it or do something with it. Now, I could sell this as it is, but you wouldn't get much for it. So I would rather turn it into something that's going to get used. And I certainly wouldn't want to put it in landfill. Now, this isn't any expensive wood. It's just a piece of ply, probably, with some veneer over the top. Oh, look at the difference in that just having it with some sugar soap has done. You see how grimy it was. It's been stored for a long time. So now that stuff hasn't got to fight through any of that grime. It can just fight that varnish. Oh, look at that. It's like a new piece of furniture, isn't it? So I shall do the same with the drawers, and then I'll show you how I'm going to strip it. So now it's nice and dry and clean. I'm going to be using some paint stripper on this. Now always wear eye protection and gloves if you're using a paint stripper. And this is quite a thick, gloopy paint stripper. And it's ideal for vertical surfaces, apparently. And I can see it's already starting to lift that. Also, work in a well-ventilated area, because that way you're not breathing in any of the fumes that are coming off it. It says put quite a thick layer on and don't brush it out. And then leave it for a couple of hours, so which is what I'm going to do. So once that's had a couple of hours, I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do next. Well, this has been sitting here long enough now, and it should scrape off all that varnish really easily, and it is. I mean, it's still going to leave a bit of a stained colour behind because the wood underneath is stained, but that has really got rid of a lot of that varnish. And I'm liking that much more already. Now, it's quite satisfying doing this. Oh, that's very satisfying. And being patient with it and leaving it on does make a big difference. And that's coming off those really well as well. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to finish all that, and then I'll wash it down again with some sugar soap. That's all nice and washed off and clean now. There are one or two patches where I do need to go over it again with a little bit more stripper, and then it's going to need a really good sanding down. And the reason is, I found that actually a lot of it is made with fiberboard. So I've got to be careful now not to get that too wet. So I'm going to leave that up that way to dry so it doesn't blow. So it was quite cheaply made, and I bet it wasn't cheap to buy, that's the thing. Before I do any of that, what I'm going to do is let it dry off completely again, and then put some on the bits that need re-stripping. And then once I've done that, because you don't need to see that bit again, I'll show you what I'm going to do next. Well, unfortunately, this is such poor quality, I'm going to have to change what I plan to do. Because most of this is made in hardboard, I'm going to have to cut some of this away and fill it. So that means I can't then have this nice finish. The other thing is, this veneer is so thin. Look how thin it is. I don't know if you can see there. A little bit came off, and it's the thinnest veneer I've ever seen in my life. So I'm not going to be able to go over this with my orbital sander. But this is the great thing about upcycling and repurposing things. sometimes your plans have to change. I am going to go over this and sand it down very lightly, and then I'm going to repair all these bits where it's blown because of this terrible quality hardboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking a sharp knife here and I'm carefully cutting away all the pieces that are blown of this hardboard to get it all to the same height. And you can see how poor quality that is. Look, really poor quality cardboard, to be perfectly honest. So once I've gone round and done all that, then I can seal that as well to ensure that it's not going to blow again and to give me a smoother finish. So I want to seal this now, and I could seal it with some wood glue, but I don't want to add any more moisture to this whatsoever, because I think adding more moisture to it, all that's going to do is cause it to blow, and there is water in wood glue, I believe. So what I'm going to use is super glue. I've got some super glue here. I'm going to dip a bit in here and then put it on, rub it in. Now this isn't going to cause a problem with what I'm going to paint it with afterwards, but it should seal this really, really well. I'm going along all the bits that are blown. I will be able to give it a bit of a rub down once it's dried, so I can make sure it's nice and smooth, and it won't take long to dry at all on here. But I genuinely believe this is going to do the best job for this. Soak into those fibres and really hold them into position without causing any more blowing to it. So what I was going to do was I was going to leave the centre of this colour and put a stencil on it and then burn using burning paste into that stencil and then varnish it, but I can't do that now. So what I've decided to do is something similar, but I'm going to use some paints as well. I'm going to use this wood dye, and I'm using Indian rosewood because I think that will give it a nice colour. Look at that, that is a really nice colour, and it is bringing out the grain. But around the outside where I've had to fill it and seal it, what I'm going to be using is some paint, and I think I'm going to be using gold and red to set this off. Now I'm going to put a couple of layers of this Indian rosewood on here before I continue and do the rest. That glue's all lovely and dry, and I've sanded it down so it's sealed that blown wood, and it's also come out smoother than I thought it would. But it wouldn't be good enough to stain, or the stain wouldn't go into it. It needs to be painted. But you can see where there's a bit of the veneer missing there now I've stained it. But I'm going to cover that up with something anyway, so I'm not too worried. While that's drying, and that's going to take a bit of time now to dry that middle, what I'm going to do is go around this with the crimson red. And I'm going to do the crimson red on here. And it will take a couple of coats, and I will probably rub it down in between coats as well. It's going to be gloss finish, so the fact that this is a matte paint is not a problem. So warm in here today that it's drying in seconds. And then the drawers I'm also going to do in red, but the filling bits around here I'm going to do in gold. This is all painted now, and I'm really quite pleased of how that's come out. I was going to put some stencils in this. I was going to put that one there and these going around the outside in gold, but I've actually decided against that now because of what I've decided to use this for. So what I'm now going to do is give this a coat of gloss varnish and let that dry. And then once that's dry, I can rub it down and give it a second coat. And then you can let me know in the comments whether you think it would have looked better with the stencil on it. It's really hot in here today, hence I've got shorts on. I don't normally work in shorts. And I will only give this a very light rub down in between coats as well. And look how quickly that is drying today. It's because it's so hot. We're not used to it in the UK. Well, that's all dried now, and it's come out really glossy. I actually really like it now, which is good, because I was a bit unsure. How I'm going to attach this to my turntable is using sticky-backed Velcro. And the reason I'm using this is because if I want to use this turntable for something else, I can have a different board with some Velcro on it and put it on there. And I can take this off and use it separately if I wish. So all I need to do now is connect those two pieces together, turn it over, and now we've got a lazy Susan that works like that as well. All the drawers are operable, so I can store stuff in it. But most of all, what I'm going to be using this for is still very sturdy, is I'm going to be using it for displaying things and give that extra layer at craft fairs. So people can just move stuff around, or they can move it around and they could look at it easier. You could also put it on a motor if you were so inclined. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but you could. And you can have your stock still kept inside these drawers. I mean, I wouldn't have it as jumbled as this. I would probably have a theme on there, maybe of animals or bookends or this sort of thing. But I'm just giving you an example of how well it can be used. And as soon as something sells, especially if it's jewellery, you can just open one of the drawers and just pop it back in. So overall, it has come out very, very useful. And I really like it. Hope you've enjoyed this project. Great upcycle. Okay, things didn't go according to plan, but they've worked out really well in the end. Boot that like button, hit that subscribe button, but most of all, enjoy your crafting. Take care. Bye.